All right. Hey, let's talk about cheap records once again. El Bicho Feo here. And got a big stack of cheapies. Mostly from the 80s, but a couple of older records too. And basically, this is sort of a selection of, some people would call them avant-garde jazz records. Some people would call them free jazz, but they're not really free jazz. To me, free jazz means, you know, no score, no rhythm, no harmonic center, all that. A lot of these albums are just tunes. There are free passages in them, but this is not straight ahead jazz. This is not head solos, head blue note type of jazz, you know, blues based standards type stuff. This is a little more out. If you like Mingus, Sun Ra, Henry Threadgill, you're gonna love a lot of these records. You're gonna know a lot of these artists too. If you're not as conversant in these areas as you might be in fusion or prog, you might want to check it out, or you might just think there's too much saxophone on these things and I don't like them. But anyway, these are records I personally think they're all fantastic, and they don't cost much, and some of them are really kind of hard to find, but when you do find them, they should not be too expensive. That's the whole idea behind cheap heat. Good records that don't cost much. This black thing on my thumb is because my thumb keeps splitting open because of the dry air here. Anyway, what we're listening to is, this is not a particularly photogenic cover. It's, you probably can't see this, but it's the Jeffrey Shanzer Ensemble, Shanzer Ensemble. And he's a guitarist who is an improvising guitarist. He's also a classical avant-garde guitarist. And there's 4 long compositions on this with a good bit of improv. The personnel on this is unbelievable. If you're into now jazz, although this was recorded then, this is from I think 1987, 88, thereabouts. But it's Leroy Jenkins on violin, Ned Rothenberg on various reeds, Jeffrey Shanzer on guitar and prepared guitar, Lindsay Horner on bass, Bobby Previtt on marimba and drums and glockenspiel, and one of the pieces, I think this piece is conducted, so it has a conductor on it. Anyway, this is called Vistas by the Jeffrey Shanzer Ensemble, and if you're really into avant-garde music, this is not just a bargain, it's beautifully recorded. I mean, just the sound on this record is really pretty amazing. 1987 or 88. A fantastic record. Not a lot of people know about it. I'll turn it up just a little bit. Just a little bit. And it's on a tiny, or maybe no label. It's called, it's on the Music Vistas label. So it's almost like a private press type of record. A couple of the other things in here are little known private press gems that, let's see. Let's pull those out first. Oh yeah, this is a good one. So this is also probably another super avant-garde one that'll appeal to fans of Anthony Braxton in particular. Joe Giardullo, he's still active. He's a wonderful, wonderful reed player and composer. I think he lives like in upstate New York. And he recorded this album called Gravity in 1979. And it's fantastic. It's very, very interesting music. It doesn't really sound like much anything else except maybe if you like Braxton, you're gonna like this. And some pretty interesting people on this. It's hard getting the volume on these recordings right. Larry Chernikoff on vibraphone. Larry Chernikoff recorded an album that's since become highly collectible. He's on this. and drummer named Harvey Sorgan, who's still around, still playing, great drummer. We'll talk more about him in a minute. This is some pretty heavy stuff. You know, if you're looking for a swing or a party record, this ain't it. But if you're looking for really intelligent, unique, and unusual music, you will like this. Art Ensemble of Chicago vibes, Braxton vibes here, definitely. Joe Giardullo, really excellent record. And not a lot of people know about it, and it's really inexpensive. Speaking of Harvey Sorgan, the drummer, he's also on this record, the Art Quartet. And this is a really unusual record in that it's this is on the Dane Records label, which is run by a guy named Walter Thompson, who's a pretty amazing musician, and plays alto sax on this. And Harvey Sorgan's the drummer. And then two guys I've never heard of before, Robert Windbeal on electric guitar and Steve Rust on fretless electric bass. And this is basically this is more of a free jazz thing, although there are definitely composed bits. But it's got this sort of fusion vibe to it. I've always really liked it for that reason. It's got sort of a jazz rock vibe to it, but a sound to it that feels more like a jazz rock record, but it's very free. And I don't know, Soft Machine Fourth comes to mind, although the instrumentation is completely different. It's saxophone, guitar, bass, and drums. But it's a really cool record, and there's some real high energy moments on this, some very spacious moments on this. But Harvey Sorgan plays some really nice drums on this. And this is a cheapie. It's not that expensive, even though it's, you know, small label and obscure and plugged in electric. There's a label, we're gonna go to the other coast now. These are sort of New England, upstate New York things. We're gonna go out to California now and talk about this label called K2B2 Records. And it's Marty Crystal is the person behind that. He's a wonderful saxophone player, sort of very energetic in the Michael Brecker mode, but he's much more like kind of an out cat. Anyway, they did a bunch of records. Crystal Clear and the Buells is one of the groups that's on that label, and it's so named because Marty Crystal on saxophones, and Buell Neidlinger, who you might know from Frank Zappa's records and Cecil Taylor's records, and also if you're into contemporary classical, Buell Neidlinger is a big name in that world as well. Anyway, these are wonderful records, and they're not expensive. This one's called Ready for the 90s. It was recorded in 1980, and the personnel: Crystal on tenor, Neidlinger on bass, Cecil Taylor is on one track. Not many albums with him as a side person. Billy Higgins on drums, Warren Gale on trumpet, Dennis Charles on drums on one track. The same track with our friend Cecil. So this is a great record, and if you ever see it and you like out jazz, modern jazz, but it's not really a free jazz record. There's a lot of compositions on this as well. I would just grab it. Crystal Clear and the Buells had a regular sort of lineup, which featured Buell Neidlinger and Marty Crystal and drummer Peter Erskine, and he's on a bunch of these things. This is a super interesting record, and it's a little more expensive than the other ones. I got this years ago, I think at Amoeba, when it was still pretty cheap. But it's got a keyboard player on it named Jerry Peters, who is kind of not well known, although he should be much better known. He was on Alphonse Mouzon's Mind Transplant record. He also did a bunch of soundtracks and a lot of gospel stuff, but he plays Hammond organ on this, and so it's kind of a rare bit just due to the instrumentation, because it's an out jazz record with some really funky Hammond organ on it. This is called Our Night Together, and it was recorded in '81 in LA, and again on the K2B2 record label, and yeah, and a lot of really cool original compositions on this, plus a monk tune. Anyway, highly recommend you get this record. Staying on the West Coast, the Nine Winds label, which was started by a multi-instrumentalist named Vinnie Golia, has done some really cool stuff. I've talked about the quartet music records on that label. Almost an inexhaustible supply of inexpensive, great, under-recognized, fantastic music of the modern jazz persuasion. And these are just a couple of them. Trombonist John Rapson recorded 2 records in the mid-80s, 84 and I think 85. The first one's called Diba Dabui, and that's sort of like a jazz, Diba Dabui, sort of a jazz trombone thing. And this is sort of in the Mingus meets Sun Ra sort of vein. It's kind of out, but it's also very kind of blustery and muscular, like a Mingus record. The playing on this is outstanding. Alex Klein is the drummer, Nels' twin brother. Roberto Miguel Miranda on bass, who's an amazing player. Wayne Pete on piano, another tremendous guy. Vinnie Golia plays bass, tenor, and alto saxophones, bass, clarinet, and alto flute. So that's 5 different reeds for him. A guy named Bill Hartley on trumpet and flugelhorn, and Rapson, of course, on trombone. And he wrote everything on this. And then he did a follow-up called Boo-Wah, like jazz. If he's a jazz trombonist with these onomatopoeic names, I'm waiting for another album by him called Wah, 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 Wah. Still waiting. Anyway, this is a bigger ensemble. It's got a lot of the same guys that the other one does. Ken Filiano on bass. Alex Klein again on percussion. Tom Lackner on drums from Headless Household. Steve Fowler, my friend Ulas's dad, on alto saxophone and flute. John Fumo on trumpet. And Vinnie Golia again on about 6 different reeds. Anyway, this is very much like Diba Dabui, the predecessor, sort of muscular, Mingus-like, Sun Ra-like, kind of out, but also in jazz. And it's really cheap and really obscure. Nobody knows about Rapson. What a great player. He kind of evaporated from the scene, I guess. I don't hear anything from him. It's too bad, too. He's a great player. Vinnie Golia is the guy who started Nine Winds, I believe. And some of his records are not cheap, like in the $20 realm. These 3 are a little less expensive. Gift of Fury, you gotta buy it for the title alone. Vinnie Golia with John Rapson on trombone. Wayne Pete on piano. Roberto Miranda on bass, and Alex Klein on drums. Really excellent quintet. Inside, outside, free-ish jazz, but also hard swinging, hard charging, energetic sounds. Vinnie Golia records are always a reward. And then this one, the quintet, my favorite of his bands. He's got a zillion bands and a big band, very worthwhile. Same personnel, except Mike Vlakovich is on trombone instead of Rapson. This is from '88, by the way. This is called Out for Blood. Again, you've got to buy it just for the title. And again, some really hard charging, energetic, Mingus-like, muscular man jazz. But it's kind of out and it's kind of in. It swings, but it gets out there. And it's a wonderful record and not expensive at all. Slightly more expensive is his record Open Hearted. And this has got Bakita Carroll on trumpet, Nels Klein on a couple of tracks playing acoustic and electric. So that might be why this is a little more sought after. It's got Nels Klein on it. Very early recording of Nels Klein. Roberto Miranda on bass and Alex Klein on drums, plus Vinnie Golia on all sorts of reeds. And this one is from 1979, 1980. So this is a little spacious, more spacious than the other ones. It's definitely the tracks with Nels Cline playing acoustic are kind of Braxton-esque in that sort of chambery sort of vein, but then some of it gets a lot more, you know, muscular and driving. But all these records, these Vinnie Golia Quintet records, are great. Highly, highly recommended. Another record that might be a little easier on the ears, from 1981, is by Cleveland drummer Jamey Haddad, who's an amazing percussionist. Great personnel on this. Jamey Haddad on drums and hand drums, Joe Lovano on tenor and soprano, Billy Drews from the Bill Frisell Band on saxophones, Ken Werner plays acoustic piano and the Yamaha plugged-in piano. Remember those? Mark Johnson on bass, Bill D'Arango on guitar, and there's an Indian percussionist and a vocalist on this. It's a pretty cool record. It's a little bit less out, and there's a really great sort of almost Mahavishnu sounding fusion track on this. I wish the whole album was like that, but it's just the one track. But this is a really cool record. It's called Names by Jamey Haddad, and I really like this a lot. It's a really fine record, and not a lot of people know about it, and it's on the Ananda Records label, so from Cleveland. So that's a good cheapie. I've mentioned Henry Threadgill a little while ago. I'm just going to talk very briefly about him. A lot of his records have gone up in price, but these two are less expensive. They're on the Arista Novus label. This is the sextet, you know the number. Great personnel on this. Threadgill on reeds, Frank Lacey on trombone, Rasul Siddiq on trumpet, Deirdre Murray on cello. There's a player that people need to talk about and listen to some more. The great Fred Hopkins on bass and Firan Aklaf on drums. This is, like, to me, just a classic group that had a very particular sound. And of course, this is available on CD as well. But I had got the LP, and it's not that expensive. Some of his other stuff has gotten kind of, you know, $20, $25. These are single digit to low teens tops. You know the number on the Arista Novus label. This is from 86, 87. And this is from 88. Rag Bush and all. Sort of a political reference here. And again, it's the sextet, but slightly different personnel. Bill Lowe on trombone, replacing Frank Lacey. But otherwise, the same, except for Newman Baker's the drummer on this. This is no less wonderful than any of the others. Highly recommended, and not expensive on the Arista Novus RCA actually label. The labels, man, they'll get you every time. I'm gonna reach back a little bit and talk about a record that I busted my rear end to get back in the day, the Joe Daley Trio. This is an important record because it's got Hal Russell on drums. Hal Russell later became more known as a saxophonist and vibraphonist, but he plays wonderful drums on this. Joe Daley's a Chicago-based tenor saxophonist, and this is from 1963. And this is a very early example of out free jazz, but it's very, very swinging. Kind of like in the same way that Ornette Coleman's early records, just super, super swinging bebop influenced, just beauties. And this is the same vein. It's just bass, drums, and tenor saxophone. And it's a really wonderful record. And it's just kind of a revelation. Hal Russell being on drums on this. I chased this record down. I paid a little bit more than a cheap price for it, but now I find that it's gone way down in price. But it's worth getting. Joe Daley Trio. Investigate the early days of this great music. I'm going to try to finish these up before I run out of time. This I just listened to, and man, this is just a beautiful record. You know, a lot of the great music from the 80s came out on these labels that are related. They're from Italy, Black Saint and Soul Note. And this is just two guys, Nana Vasconcelos and Antonello Salis, who's a keyboard player, plays accordion and acoustic piano on this. And this is just a beautiful, beautiful record. I usually don't go for duo records or records with like kind of vocals. There's a little bit of vocals on this, but they're cool because they're like folk vocals, but they're not on every track. Hey, this is just a gorgeous record, and I find that pretty much everything Nana Vasconcelos has done is worth checking out. This is just and it's one of the cheap soul notes. It's not expensive at all. 1988 is when it came out. It's also available on CD, obviously. But if you ever see this bouncing around, it's not going to set you back much. And it's a sublime record. Really, really just lovely. Almost crosses that jazz world music sort of intersection. Here's another record on a small label, 1750 Arch Records. Drum Strum, George Marsh, drum master, total monster on the drums, still active, and John Abercrombie on guitar and electric mandolin, all improvised. This shows John Abercrombie's wild side. It's really a fine record. And some of these records are getting a little pricey, some of these 1750 Arch records, but this one's still pretty cheap. And it's just great. George Marsh just kills on this. And the chemistry is just all over the place. So the record's over. I should cut it off. I hope this has helped you find some cool music. And I'll do some more of these, but this is the avant-garde jazz edition of Cheap Heat. Keep your eyes out and listen to everything. Check things out on YouTube too.